Man, can you sing? What an amazing beginning to the liturgy this day. I had to fight back both goosebumps and tears during the wonderful singing of the Gloria. Amazing. Keep at it. Sisters and brothers, in the 1990s, there's a Christian rock group who had a song called How Many Kings? And the refrain went like this: how many kings stepped down from their throne? How many lords abandoned their homes? How many greats have become the least for me? How many gods have poured out their hearts to romance a world fallen apart? How many fathers gave up their son for me? There on the cross, Jesus and the criminal. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom, and today you will be with me in paradise. Sisters and brothers, we gather today to celebrate this King crucified and risen. To grasp the meaning of this feast, this is the 100th anniversary of the solemnity of Christ, the King of the universe. What a privilege to be here. 100 times the church has gathered to celebrate this feast. 100 years ago, 1925. For almost everyone here, this must feel like the distance to the Civil War or perhaps the American Revolution. 100 years ago is so long ago. But if we reflect on that year for just a moment, it was only 6 years since the armistice that ended World War I with its 20 million dead and 20 million wounded. Joseph Stalin had come to power in 1924, and in 1925 was consolidating offices so he could be the sole ruler of the atheist socialist Soviet Union. Adolf Hitler, though years from being Führer, published his manifesto, Mein Kampf, and restored the banned Nationalist Socialist German Workers' Party, or what we know of as the Nazi Party. Benito Mussolini becomes the fascist statist dictator of Italy with a desire to reestablish the greatness of the Roman Empire. In the United States, our own president, Calvin Coolidge, in his second term as president, reminded us that the business of the American people is business. To sum it all up, F. Scott Fitzgerald published The Great Gatsby that year, celebrating the excesses of the Roaring Twenties. Sisters and brothers, it was a mad time, that 1925. In the church, 1925, like 2025, was a holy year, like the one we celebrate this year. Instead of the 1700th anniversary of the Council of Nicaea that we celebrate this year, it was the 1600th. It was this Council of Nicaea that added the words, "And of his kingdom there will be no end," to the creed. Pope Pius XI is sitting on the throne of Peter in that year, reflecting on the state of the world and how much the world has forgotten Christ. He instituted what was then called the Feast of Christ the King, now the Solemnity of Christ the King of the universe. This feast on the last Sunday of the liturgical year reminds us that all not only is summed up in Christ, but that in Christ is the universal rule, the sovereignty over every dimension of life: individual, family, social, political, economic, ecumenical, all comes under the reign of Christ, the King of the universe. Pope Pius at this time noted that some of the nations thought that they could dispense with God. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? That their religion could consist of impiety and the neglect of God. He went on to describe what the results of that decision was. That the seeds of discord around the world were far and wide. There are bitter rivalries between nations. There's an insatiable greed and blind and immoderate selfishness. There is no peace in the home, and the unity of the family is undermined. Society, he wrote, is shaken to its foundation and is on the way to ruin. The Holy Father noted that in history, that the reason some of the major solemnities were introduced into the church was to correct an error or to counter a forgetfulness. The Feast of the Body and Blood of Christ was introduced to counter the forgetfulness of the real presence. The Feast of the Sacred Heart of Jesus was to counter the false rigorism and judgmentalism of the Jansenist heresy. The Pope chose a Sunday for this annual celebration because he said if we chose a weekday, the only people who would understand Christ the King are the scholars. So let's put it on a Sunday where in our worship we could confirm again and again, year after year, that Christ indeed is our King. He said that our only hope for peace is the restoration of the empire of the Lord. Now, we in America get nervous about that. We don't like kings. So he's not talking about the restoration of the Christian empire or the Holy Roman Empire or the Byzantine Empire or anything like it. He's not talking about a political empire. He's speaking about the restoration of Christ as the supreme authority, the highest lawmaking, judicial, executive power over all lives, families, politics, nations, and peoples. The Pope sensed what we continue to sense today, sisters and brothers, that so many nations, including much of our own, have ruled Christ and Christ's law, the law of love and the moral law, out of politics and out of society. In his very short encyclical, Quas Primas, that introduced this feast day, 34 paragraphs long, Pope Pius invites us to reconsider the kingship, the sovereignty of Christ in our lives, in the church and beyond. Mindful of the needs of our lives and families, our state, our nation, and the world, let us consider Christ and his kingship with this brief litany. His rule is love, wisdom, and steadfast mercy. His rule is courage, self-giving, and strength. His rule is benevolence, reconciliation, and peace. His rule is the consolation and faithfulness and care for all. By his, Christ the King, sovereignty over our minds, our wills, our souls, our homes, our politics, our lives, let us declare anew this day, Christ is the King of our hearts, and Christ is the King of the universe. After all, how many kings have stepped down from their thrones? How many lords have abandoned their homes? How many greats have become the least for me? How many gods have poured out their hearts to romance a world fallen apart?
Please like, subscribe, and comment below. God bless you.